All right, fellas. What up? What up? I will be spearheading this one solo today. But we are going to be tackling our weekly Dynasty Superflex mock draft, no tight end premium in this one, 12 teamer. If you guys are just filing in here, I'll give you a chance to join up in the mock. The link should be down below in the chat, and it is also in the Discord for those of you guys that are a part of that. And then once this thing fills up, we'll get her going. In the meantime, feel free to ask any questions. I'm getting excited. I don't know about you guys. Today is July 9th, which means we're about 10 days away or so from the rookies reporting to training camp, which means we're going to have some real stuff to talk about, some, videos and hype pieces and all that kind of stuff. So I'm getting really excited. And I think we're about 2 weeks away, give or take, from the whole training camp kind of being in full swing. I think it's July 25th or so that every team reports by. But I believe July 18th is the first time that rookies are going to report. So I'm going to be really excited for this. So we got this mock filling up a little bit. Make sure you guys join up. Again, it is a 12-team Dynasty Superflex mock draft, no tight end premium. Micah was the first one in here. Let's go, boys. What's up, Mystic? What's going on? He said nothing better than a Sunday mock with the boys. Yes, sir. Yo, what's going on, Spicy Hot? He also asked, what deep sleepers and late startup rounds do you keep drafting? I'd have to look at my exposure to get back to, because honestly, I can't even recall who I have. I know all the sleepers that I talked about in rookie drafts also would be guys that I was drafting late in startups as well. And also I kind of like taking shots in late startup rounds on players I just think are good players. That's pretty much my philosophy. So for example, like Kendrick Bourne on the Patriots, I know he had an up and down season. He wasn't really involved in the offense, and it sounded like him and Matt Patricia had some beef or something. But I think he's a good player, and he literally had 800 yards and 5 touchdowns 2 seasons ago. And he's the type of guy that I would draft late in a startup, just because I think he can play in spurts, and players like that is usually the guys I go after late in startup rounds. Same with upside swing tight ends and quarterbacks as well. So looks like 2 more people, and then we will be able to start this mock. He said, also, did you see the report that Malik Willis is out playing Will Levis in the early days of OTAs? I mean, I won't really start buying into that stuff until it's actually training camp. OTAs is when you're a rookie quarterback like Levis is, he's not really going to have any kind of semblance of the offense or what the hell he's doing. So it doesn't really shock me that a guy who's been there longer than him is out playing him in camp. So one more, and then we can get this thing going. I'll get my my screen shared here so you guys can see and get into it. All right. Okay, I think we're full. We are full. All right, so I shall randomize the draft order, and then we will get this thing going. All right, so I am picking up the 105 spot, which I actually love picking around this area of the draft, because I think you hit the sweet spot in all of the first 3 rounds, because you get a really good quarterback at the top. You still get quite a good option at 208, and then at 305, I still think you have a chance to get your Olave, T. Higgins, Drake London types. So definitely really excited about that. I will hit the start draft button on here. And Martin's the first guy on the clock. 60-second clocks. Nobody auto pick. Again, for those of you guys that are just joining in, 12-team Dynasty PPR Superflex, no tight end premium. Mystic says Joe Burrow or the 104, 105, 108, 202, and Derek Carr. Okay, so Burrow or CJ Stroud, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Quentin Johnston, the 202, and Derek Carr. I mean, it's an okay package, I suppose, but I would just prefer Joe Burrow, especially knowing just the type of value that he has on the open market. He's so bulletproof. He's just such a good quarterback. I'm probably just sticking with Burrow there, Mystic. Spicy Out says, just got back from Vegas, got blackjack twice in a row on 25 min table and won up to $500 on a slot that was just on fire on. Well, you love to see that. Spicy's just cooking in the casinos right now. Mason says, my bad. Last time I watched live, I misworded my question. Would you rather trade Jameson Williams and a first for Diggs, or Jameson Williams for Ridley straight up as a contender? Okay. Jameson Williams and a first for Diggs. If you're a contender, I'm assuming you have a late first and it's a 1 quarterback first. So I really do like that trade for Diggs. However, I would rather just do JMO for Ridley straight up, because the buying power of your first round pick would allow you to go after another player if you wanted to. And I mean, there's a difference between Diggs and Ridley for sure. I would rather have Diggs, but I wouldn't be shocked if Ridley outscored him this year. Like, I think Ridley has that kind of ceiling. That might be a bold take. You guys might be like, what the hell are you talking about? But I think from what we last saw of Ridley when he was on the field, we're talking about like a 25, 30% target share guy, had a top 5 season in 2020 or in 2021. Sorry. Yeah. What year was it? 2020. He had a top 5 season in 2020. And he was playing with like a washed up Matt Ryan with Julio on the outside of him. And I think Trevor Lawrence could have a legitimate, MVP caliber season this year. So I'm on the board here. Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Trevor Lawrence, and such. I believe Lamar Jackson is my highest rated quarterback. So that will be the direction I'm going to go. So I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson here. The thing that I sometimes keep in mind when it comes to this decision point, Lamar versus Herbert and Lawrence and those guys, is that Herbert and Lawrence do, I think, keep you a little bit more flexible just because as a rushing quarterback, Lamar is a little bit, probably has like a lower shelf life than those guys. And also, I believe Herbert's like 24 versus Lamar is like 27. And then Lawrence is like 23. So you do get a couple extra years of age with those other quarterbacks. But any which order you wanted to take those guys, I would probably go with them. But Lamar is the guy that I went with. What's good, Bush? What's going on, Nate? Solid sneak peeks at the 2024 prospects the other day. Yeah, really appreciate that. I spent like probably 30 to 40 hours on that video. Not like specifically that video, but between the tape breakdowns that I did on the site for top 10 quarterbacks, top 10 running backs, and top 10 wide receivers, all culminating in the tier list video that Nate is talking about that I did. You guys can go check that out. It was just the top 24 prospects tier list. I spent a lot of time researching those guys. I'm glad, to be honest, that I did it though, because this is the best I've ever been educated on on upcoming crop of rookies entering a college football season like ever. And it's not even been remotely close. Like I had an idea of who the top guys were last year and I, watched some highlight tapes and that kind of thing, but I like legitimately watched 2 to 3 games worth of game film on all of the top prospects to the point that like, if I had to do a rookie draft right now, I honestly probably could, even though we're like so much time away from it and we have no idea how the values are going to change. I feel really, really good about my knowledge of the 2024 class. And hopefully you guys do, having watched those videos. And if you guys are site subscribers, of course, definitely check out the tape breakdowns. Those will not be available on YouTube. So if you want to see me break down, film of Caleb Williams, film of Marvin Harrison, film of Emeka Egbuka and Raheem Sanders and all those guys, that is available exclusively on the site. And you guys can see the thing rolling across the bottom of the screen there that I just put up. What's the mock on? It's on Sleeper. What do you mean? What's the mock on? The settings are at the top, if that's what you're referring to. Okay. So could you rank the 4 types of running backs that were outlined in Thursday's video based on most important to draft in later rounds of a PPR redraft league? So, the thing that Andrew is talking about is in Thursday's video, I broke down sleeper running backs, some early sleepers, and basically the parameters that I was looking at to help identify some of the sleepers were the sleepers that have hit in the last 3 years, and rookie running backs, handcuffs, pass catching running backs, and ambiguous backfield running backs were the 4 archetypes that I outlined. And I would say, so if I had to rank them based on most important, I would say rookies stand ahead as the most important to invest in, just because rookies have the highest ceilings without injury. Obviously, handcuffs in some situations will have the highest ceiling. But I would say when you're investing in late round running backs, taking a swing on rookies is always like a good lotto ticket. And usually too, with rookies, you'll kind of know at the beginning of the season if they're getting a significant workload or not. And if you play in leagues with deep benches, they're good stashes for, the duration of the season. So I would say rookies for sure are the ones that I'm looking to take shots on. And specifically this year, that would apply to like Zach Evans, Sean Tucker. I'm trying to think who are the later round guys. Chase Brown, Roshan Johnson, who will probably, by the time, we end up doing drafts, work himself back up into the mid rounds rather than the early rounds. But that would definitely be the most important. I would say second would be ambiguous backfields, just because, again, they don't need an injury for it to happen. Like, so if you invest in, Damian Harris's and not Ramondre Stevenson's, Rashad Penny's, guys like that are in situations where we don't really know what the workload's going to be split up, like Gus Edwards, who I talked about in the video on Thursday. They would be second, and then handcuffs would be third, and pass catchers would be fourth, just because pass catchers can be a little bit hit or miss. There's not usually plenty of pass catching backs that hit every year. There's maybe like 1 or 2 every season. And if you can spot the good ones, then you can get yourself a good JD McKissick season or a James White season. But for the most part, they miss at a higher rate, I would say. And then handcuffs, yeah, they're important, but I don't want to line my bench with a ton of handcuffs. Maybe draft one, maybe two. Like if you want to grab Jalen Warren late in a draft to go along with Roshan Johnson, Chase Brown, and Damian Harris as your running back depth, I think that's like a good way. I would say mix in a bunch of all of these archetypes is generally the strategy that I'm looking to deploy at the running back position late in drafts. And of the positions, running back is the one that I love targeting late the most, rather than, I like getting a good quarterback. I like getting a good tight end if possible. And I like filling out the bulk of my wide receivers earlier on versus later on in the drafts getting a bunch of quarterbacks and tight ends and stuff. I would rather take shots on running backs later in the draft than I would on any other position. So I'm back on the clock here. I believe my highest rated receiver would be either Waddle or Chris Olave. Kyle Pitts is still on the board, but it isn't a tight end premium, or it is not a tight end premium. It should be clear there. Running backs, Breece Hall and Bijan are already off the board. I believe Bryce Young is my highest rated quarterback because Kyler is already gone. So I'm going to go with Bryce Young. And this is kind of, a little bit annoying because I took Lamar with my first pick. I probably, knowing if I had Bryce Young as my second pick, in hindsight, I probably should have went with Justin Herbert or Trevor Lawrence just because they're a little bit younger. And if I'm going to go with a first-year quarterback as my second pick, probably don't want to really build out like a contending roster because it's a little bit difficult to do that with Bryce Young this early. So it kind of hurts my flexibility a little bit. Maybe if this was a real league, I would, after the startup, maybe see what it costs to go down from Herbert and Lamar. Maybe the guy behind me wanted, Lamar really bad and I could, net a second rounder out of it or something like that. Micah said, saw James Cook go over DeAndre Swift the other day in a startup. Were they cooking, or is DeAndre Swift stock that low? I mean, I don't think it's outrageous. I would personally prefer DeAndre Swift, but I'm not high on DeAndre Swift either. So if people are just that low on DeAndre Swift, it doesn't really shock me. I think one of the things that I really want to outline, I'll probably do an entire video on this, and I might actually have Ryan Heath from Fantasy Points on the channel to break this down, because he was on, I believe he was on Underdog's channel a couple of weeks ago, and he broke down an article he did where it was basically like an all positions version of the running back touch and age apex video that I do, except at like a little bit lesser of like a scale, where instead of looking at like all the running backs and like what age they were when they fell off and touch counts and that kind of thing, it was more of like a general, what age do X position fall off. And what he found was breakout rates as well as when they fell off. Fourth year running backs, if they haven't broken out by their fourth season, which is the season that DeAndre Swift and J.K. Dobbins and Cam Akers and those guys are in, it's usually difficult for them to actually go ahead and break out. Like the breakout rates of running backs are like 25% their rookie season, like 31% their second season, and then like 18% their third season. If they haven't broken out by year 4, it's like a 4% chance. And with Dobbins and Akers, there was injury concerns. Like they suffered major injuries, and that's kind of why I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt to some degree, because 2 of their rookie contract seasons were pretty much wiped out by injury. But Swift, he dealt with nagging stuff, but he never had like a serious injury to derail him. And yet he never broke out, and his team traded him away for like a day 3 pick. So I'm not super high on DeAndre Swift, although I would still take him over James Cook personally. I felt like I was at home in those casinos. I wish Texas made it legal. Who would you have taken in a 6-point per passing touchdown? In a 6-point league, I definitely probably go Herbert there, just because the age and then also the added wrinkle of a 6-point as well. Spicy Hot's just going off about his gambling stuff here. Jake says, I traded for the 102 in a 1 quarterback before the NFL draft and took JSN while I already have DK. Should I be concerned with Geno's production and try to move DK? So I think DK Metcalf might be like a sell in Dynasty just in general, because I'm not totally convinced that he's going to have like a great season this year, given the crowded nature of that wide receiver core. And I think they're going to be a run-heavy offense. I mean, they have Walker and Charbonnet. They're probably going to want to get those guys going. And, of course, Pete Carroll is Pete Carroll. He loves to run the ball. So I personally would try and move DK, but not for the reason that you're kind of suggesting, that like you don't want to have JSN and DK. I think DK is just a general sell in my opinion. So yeah, I think if you wanted to sell him, I definitely would consider it. I am going to go Drake London here because it would be him and T Higgins like neck and neck, but because I went Bryce Young, I'll go with the youth factor of Drake London. Hopefully I can build out a bit of a productive struggle here. It looks like some of you guys are kind of going towards a productive struggle. Some of you guys are building out more of a contending type of team. Brian looks like he's got a contending team, but generally speaking, I mean, you guys kind of know the draft room that we're usually in these superflex mocks. Mystic says Dynasty 12 teams start 11 superflex. He has Allen, Watson. He grabbed Geno at 802 and Pickett at 1002. Who should I sell? I would sell Geno for sure, because Geno's on the up right now. Given his career history, he's definitely the riskier of the two, and he's the older one as well. And I would rather have the young guys, or the young guy and Kenny Pickett, who you got at a later point in time. That also, I mean, the fact that he went at 10:02 tells me that you could get more for Geno Smith as well. So you have JSN, Watson, Judy, Dotson, Mooney, Gibbs, Montgomery, A-Chain. I mean, if you're contending, which it kind of looks like you are, I would try and sell Geno Smith for like 802. I'm trying to think. Maybe Damian Pierce went in that area. Maybe J.K. Dobbins went in that area. I would potentially try and sell maybe for a winning running back, or you could just go after a receiver if somebody wanted to sell Mike Evans plus or something like that, Mike Williams plus for Geno Smith. I think that would be also kind of interesting as well. Was trying to get in, didn't see it in Discord. Yeah, no, sorry, I didn't. I mentioned it was in the mock draft channel in the Discord if anybody was in there. Hey, Bush, give Elijah Moore, Keenan Allen a 2025 and 26 first for CeeDee Lamb. Okay, so that's a lot to give up. 2 ones and Elijah Moore and Keenan Allen. My team is stacked, would still have a Taco Manager's 25 and 26 first. So, I mean, if your team's loaded and you already have a non-contenders picks in the future, I don't mind this trade. These are the types of trades I would make if your team is in the position that it sounds like it's in, where your team is loaded. You're just trying to get studs to fill out your starting roster. You don't have depth issues. You don't have draft pick issues. I'm okay with it. I think at face value, I would take the package, but in your situation, I think I'm fine with that trade. Thanks for the stream today, Bush. No problem, man. Like I'm here to serve the people. And I'm just getting so excited for the football season that doing a video every day just makes me more and more excited. So I doubt we're going to have any days where we're not doing videos. Also, me and Danny are like brainstorming stuff for the regular season. We're going to be making a lot of changes to the schedule and like how we've been doing things, because we want to make sure it's as, fresh and, value packed as we possibly can. So if you guys have any suggestions for things that you want to see in season that we haven't done, maybe you want to see us talk more about flex plays, or maybe you want to see us answer, more questions, or, incorporate more dynasty trade discussions. I can give you guys a sneak peek. We will be doing a Monday morning live stream around, noon Eastern, basically of a segmented hour-long live stream where we might talk about some dynasty trades for one segment. We might talk about what happened in the week of football in the next segment, like kind of takeaways and those kind of things. And then at the end, we'll probably break down the best waiver pickups and let us know what you guys think of that idea. I thought that was a good way to my favorite thing, I don't know about you guys, but when I listen to other people's NFL content before I ever started making content, my favorite content to listen to was the Monday morning show right after the games had been played. I always loved listening to my favorite analysts kind of break down the games and that kind of thing. So I really think that we were missing that on our channel. And I think the Monday morning show will give us the encapsulation of some other YouTube channels do a 10 takeaways from week 3 or whatever week it was. Then it also encapsulates kind of the waiver wire stuff. And then I want to mix in an element of dynasty where if you guys make any dynasty trades over the weekend or over the weeks leading up to that video, then we can kind of break down some dynasty trades as well. Let me know what you guys think of that idea. And again, feel free to suggest anything that you guys want to see during the season. Do you think that the top 5 or 6 running backs will get even more valuable over the next few years, given positional scarcity and a general shift to a committee approach? I mean, 5 or 6 running backs implies that there's 5 or 6 guys that are going to be ahead of the pack. And I would say as of right now, there might be, but it's possible that the running back landscape shifts to towards more young guys with the 2024 class coming in and the 2023 class this past year. It's possible that we have a little bit more depth at the top. But I do think that's kind of always been the state of the running back position, sans for a couple of years after the 2017 draft, because that class was just absolutely so loaded with talent. I think the 2019 startup season was the best the running back position has ever been in, because we had all those 2017 running backs, McCaffrey, Mixon, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, all those guys, Leonard Fournette, all those dudes at the top. And then we also had the 2018 class, which had Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, those type of guys at the top as well. I think we're not in a place that we were in then, because all those 17 running backs are older now, and we haven't really had the greatest running back classes the past couple of years. And a lot of those guys have gotten injured, like Javonte Williams and Breece Hall and Cam Akers and those guys. But I'm really interested to see how the landscape changes. And I do think it'll probably stay the same as it's always been, where there's been, 5 or 6, maybe 8 to 10 running backs that kind of stand above the rest. 12 teams, super flex, half PPR, start 10. I just traded the 102 Bijan. So you got Bijan at 102, which is interesting. 405 OBJ for 106, a 2024 first, and Dotson. Now I have the 104, 106, 3 2024 first. So this is really interesting. I mean, I'm guessing you were in a position where you weren't competing. So trading down from 102 to get, I mean, OBJ and 405 I really don't care about. They're not really that valuable of assets. You basically net a trade down from 102 to 106. You get a 2024 first out of it and Jahan Dotson. I think that's a pretty reasonable return. 106, you're still going to get presumably JSN or Gibbs or Stroud. And then at 2024 first, probably a later first, given the guys trading up for Bijan Robinson. But I definitely think that was a pretty solid move given your team situation. Now you have, multiple firsts this year and a multiple first next year. So definitely a solid move there. So I'm on the board here. Jordan Addison is gone, which is who I wanted to fall to me. Quarterback looks pretty light, especially in the youth department. TJ Hawkinson, somebody I don't really grab in mocks often. Maybe I want to see what my team looks like with TJ Hawkinson. I don't think I want to, because I think I want to take Quentin Johnston. So I'm going to take Quentin Johnston here. And given that my team's young, I think my highest rated receiver would have been Ayuk or Judy. But given that my team is younger, I think I went with QJ there. He kind of fits the bill and the mold a little bit more. What's your thoughts on the Commanders wide receiver room for redraft? My thoughts on the Commanders wide receiver room is that I actually like all of them at their cost. I think Terry McLaurin is the one I'm fading most, just because he's like the most expensive, but I still like him in like the 4th round, give or take, where he goes. But I love Jahan Dotson. I have like an absolutely ridiculous amount of an underdog. I think he's my highest owned wide receiver behind Josh Downs right now. And I know in the 40 drafts that I've been doing, since Danny was in Buffalo and entered me into a bunch of drafts, I believe I've drafted Jahan Dotson in probably like close to 25-30% of my underdog drafts in totality at this point in time. So I love those guys. And also I talked about Curtis Samuel on Friday's video as a great sleeper, mainly for best ball. Like, I don't know how interested I am in Curtis Samuel from like a season long perspective, but because he gets like scheme touches, because he sometimes, carries the football, I think he's an interesting best ball pick, but that's probably the extent of my Curtis Samuel love. I just think in a best ball format, he's definitely going to have his weeks. And I wouldn't be shocked. I've mentioned this for a couple receiver rooms. I wouldn't be shocked if the target shares of the Washington Commanders receivers are a lot closer than people think. Like, I think most projection systems will have Terry McLaurin for like 25%, Jahan Dotson for like 21%, and Curtis Samuel for like 17%. But I wouldn't be shocked if it was like McLaurin 23%, Dotson 22%, Samuel 20%. Like, and they were really condensed to those 3 options, and most of those guys were carrying the load for the offense, because I mean, Logan Thomas is like 32 coming off a blown ACL. He was like pretty much useless last year when he was coming off that ACL tear, but he could be better this year, I suppose. The running back core, Gibson's going to catch some passes here and there, but Brian Robinson is kind of a 0 in the passing game. So I really like that room in general overall. A guy wants Marquise Brown off of me. I told him I want Addison in return. Yeah, give me Addison over Marquise Brown. That's a great trade. Standard PPR also is a little bit of an oxymoron. Any hope for Shakir this year? I think he might be able to have some best ball value, but I prefer DPJ. Yeah, I mean, Shakir's an interesting best ball dart throw, but I personally, I'm not intrigued by him totally, because it looks like they're going to split that slot role. If they had not signed Deontay Hardy, I think I would be a lot more into Shakir than I am, because that would mean that they have faith in him to be the starting slot receiver. And I think between Deontay Hardy and Khalil Shakir, they're probably going to work both of those guys into the slot some, and it's going to be Diggs and Davis in 2 wide receiver sets. And for what it's worth, I think Gabriel Davis is actually one of the better values on underdog this year. And it's crazy for me to say that, because I didn't like him at all last year, because he was a 4th round pick and now he's a 7th round pick, where he should have been going the entire time, because he was exactly what I thought he was going to be last year. He was a boomer bust wide receiver 3. He gave you a bunch of good spike weeks, but he wasn't consistent. And that's exactly what I expected. And people are somewhat surprised that he did exactly what he was probably projected to do. And he's going into his 4th season. It's a contract year. He had a 19% target share in a Josh Allen-led offense. As a 3rd-year player, he could improve on that in his 4th year. I think he's a really, really good value. So of the Bills receiving options, Davis is actually the one I'm getting the most of, and I don't mind Kincaid at value. Shakir, not so much. I think, like you said, I like, Donovan Peoples-Jones and some other guys a little bit more at that point in the draft. Angry Colt says Bijan or Marvin Harrison Jr. Um, as of now, I'll take Bijan. But I wouldn't be shocked if this time next year he's going ahead of him. Marvin Harrison is going ahead of him in startups. I think I would take Bijan though, just given the positional advantage that Bijan gives you, and the fact that I know. I mean, I pretty much know for a fact Marvin Harrison's going to go top 10 in the draft as well. But Bijan has already done it, and he went to a scheme and an offense that really fits what he does well. So I'll take Bijan just for the safety factor, but I wouldn't be shocked if Harrison's more valuable this time next year. Just finished startup. Somebody offered me Amon-Ra, Juju for Christian Watson, Christian Kirk, and Keenan Allen. Yeah, I think I would take Amon-Ra and Juju. Like, I mean, Juju's not really worth anything, but Amon-Ra is worth a lot. If you can afford to lose the depth there, it's a 10-team league, so maybe you can, but it also is a start 11. That's a lot of starting spots. That's an interesting one. That's really going to depend on the rest of my wide receiver core. I would love to get an upgrade like Amon-Ra. If you could make Juju a better piece, like just something better, like a second rounder, or at least an upside swing like a Sky Moore or something like that, I think I like that deal a lot more. So I'm back on the clock here. I don't love TJ Hawkinson actually fell to me, which is pretty crazy. So I think I'm going to take him. Yeah, I like the young guys at wide receiver still too. I'm going to take TJ Hawkinson. I never draft TJ Hawkinson. Like, I don't know if I've ever done this on a stream before. So that'll be interesting. TJ Hawkinson. If you guys are in here, by the way, and I have answered your question, leave a like on the stream. And if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do so as well. Would you look to sell Gibbs and or ETN for a team looking to contend? I have old wide receivers in Cup and Adams. Are you looking to contend? You said, would you look to sell Gibbs or for a team? Okay, so do you mean like you would sell Gibbs for like McCaffrey, like somebody that would kind of fit your mold a little bit better? I think honestly, man, like I think some people get themselves caught in the trap of looking at their team and they're like, oh, I have old wide receivers but young running backs, but that's kind of what you want, like because Cup and Adams, while they're older, they're still probably going to be fantasy relevant for 2-3 more years. And having a rookie running back and a third-year running back is much better to extend your winning window. So maybe Christian McCaffrey and, Saquon Barkley at face value gives you more like wins over replacement in the first season, but you can compete for multiple years using those younger running backs. So I think I would just hold unless you're going to get like outrageous value. If somebody's going to give you like Saquon Barkley and like a contending running back and a contending wide receiver to go along with trading for Gibbs, then I think that's fine. But for me, I think I'm okay holding those guys and just using them to contend. In a Dynasty startup league, 2 quarterbacks, I flipped Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson, and a mid-first for Kyler, Rondale Moore, and Paris Campbell. Okay, so Cooper, Deontay, and a mid-first for Kyler. Yeah, give me Kyler's side. Rondale Moore and Paris Campbell aren't really worth much, but that's a pretty solid deal for Kyler Murray. Now having Mahomes and Kyler, I don't know what your team situation is. I would assume you're probably not competing right now, so offloading Amari Cooper and Deontay is definitely pretty solid for you there. Jake says, appreciate the feedback. I'm a contender, so I was trying to move DK in a late first for Devontae Smith or Drake London and a second, but had no luck. Yeah, I would do that move if you can get it done, but obviously you said you had no luck doing it. My wide receivers are currently DK, Wilson, Higgins, Godwin, and JSN. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty loaded core. Maybe you can use Metcalf to upgrade at quarterback somehow. I don't know who your quarterbacks are, but maybe you can use Metcalf in a package deal that way if you can't, straight up swap him for a wide receiver. 311 Goff. Oh, yeah, it looks like Team 11 got 311 Goff. I don't know. Pionio was the guy in here. Somebody left, and now it just says Team 11. We just got a CPU in here casually. Hate to see that. That team I asked for has 10 players that's gone in the first 3 rounds of this draft. Yeah, that's pretty solid there. So I'm gonna just break down the board right now because I feel like I haven't talked about the draft enough. So I'm looking at, kind of team strategies here. Again, Brian looks like he's going for a contending type of window, contending for Chan Hughes. This looks like more of a, 1-year punt type of build for Pena. Martin looks like he's going a little younger as well. CJ, I mean, you got 2 running backs you're contending. This is more of like a 1-year punt for roommate. Jared's got more of a young build as well. Pionio with a contending build, but Kyler not the best situation there for a contending team. Dollar has a contending team here too. I would say I can't click on Team 11 for some reason, but yeah, I mean it's a computer, so I'm not even going to break it down. Yeah, Pollard too, so he's contending as well. And then spicy out with Andrews and Bijan. It's kind of a contending build. So I think given the room, I think I made the right decision going more with like a productive struggle with these like younger players, because it looks like I'm one of like 3 or 4 teams that's doing it. And if this was a real startup, I probably would have been trying to wheel and deal a little bit, trying to trade down, especially when I got to that Quentin Johnston pick. If somebody wanted to grab Judy or Ayuk or ETN or Eckler, or somebody who is a contending team wanted to come up and get one of those guys, I definitely would have been cool sliding back a little bit, because there's a lot of receiver value on the board. And then the Hawkinson pick as well, I probably would have tried to trade off of. What kind of dynasty content do you guys normally do during the regular season? That is a good question. I will look at what we did last year to give you a good example. I off the top of my head, I remember we did good like updates on how the rookie class was progressing. Sorry, and I was talking about like I remember Quentin Johnston got off to a really slow start, and I was like, oh god, man, this receiver class doesn't look good right now because JSN is injured. Quentin Johnston is playing like shit. Kayshon Boutte is playing like shit. And it ended up kind of coming to fruition. So I will say, keeping you guys updated on the rookie class will be one thing that I absolutely continue to do next season. We'll talk about trade targets, of course, as well. Guys that you can go after during the regular season that are maybe injured. For those of you guys that are, I know a lot of you guys that follow us are probably building out like, 1 year productive struggles or like total rebuilds. So we'll definitely break down some targets that you can go after that are going to accumulate value. And then also we did some dynasty decisions during last season, and we also did some dynasty trade discussion. Like I said, we're intending on doing some dynasty trade discussion Monday mornings, first thing, when we break down what happened in the week's games as well. Goff is crazy, LMAO. Thoughts on Cooper Kupp? I'm in the 4th round of a Superflex dynasty. Do I take him? I think that's about where he should go. It would depend on the board and your team. Are you contending? And the majority of your league mates are trying to rebuild. In that case, yeah, I think Cooper Kupp is a fine player there. I personally don't find myself drafting Cooper Kupp very often, just because he pigeonholes you into contending. But if you kind of already know the landscape of your league, then I think he's a good value there. Big fan of the Monday live stream idea. Are you planning to stream any Best Ball Mania today? No, we weren't planning on it, but we could definitely do one during the week sometime, Marvin. This week, do you guys, let me know what you guys think, because we're going to definitely do some redraft rankings. I want to get a set of redraft rankings out before training camp, because things are going to change after training camp in the preseason. Do you guys want to see that this week, or do you want to see that next week? Let me know. Because like this time of year, I think is when the redraft folks start to come back. I've noticed some of you guys in the comments being like, oh, you guys have a new intro. And how come you're not saying what's happening, y'all, at the beginning of videos? So I can tell, like, some of you guys, and, rightfully so, took a break from football for a bit and are starting to come back to it a little. So that's something that I'm curious about. If you guys want to start seeing redraft rankings now, we're obviously going to update them in August, but an early redraft ranking situation now would probably be helpful for those of you guys that are doing, best ball drafts and getting a head start on your league mates and that kind of thing. So I'm on the board here. Javonte Williams is somebody that I'm starting to get a little bit more interested in, given how he's progressed with his ACL tear. I don't know if you guys saw this on Twitter, but Javonte Williams says he's going to be 100% ready to go for training camp. Now, I don't 100% want him to be, because it's only been like 8 months since he tore his ACL. So he's apparently way ahead of schedule. And we saw this with Gallup and Godwin last year. Both of them came back in 8 months and were, suffering compensation injuries and, not playing to their highest potential, I would say, to put it mildly. I'm going to take Pittman here, get myself another receiver. And those guys, probably could have stood to wait a little bit longer and come back fully healthy. And I hope that doesn't happen with Javonte Williams. But I will say, I mean, if the guy's out there in training camp and he's playing in preseason games, like, he might be going way too low in drafts right now. Because if he's actually healthy, he's probably going to get a pretty sizable workload. And that's definitely interesting to me, because, I mean, you guys know how much I love Javonte last year. He was like one of my favorite running back picks. And unfortunately, he got injured. By the way, too, the what makes a league winning running back, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end videos, I'm doing the first one tomorrow. The quarterback one will be tomorrow. And I know you guys like that series every year. So typically I start that at the end of June, but I wanted to wait like about a week and a half. This is now like our 3rd year making content. So I'm starting to get a good idea of when you guys want to see certain things. And I found that the later of the what makes a league winning wide receivers and tight ends last year did way better than the quarterbacks and running backs. So I think I just did them a little too early. So I waited about a week and a half from what the point that I did it last year. And I also wanted to get some more information as well. How often per week are you going to be streaming? During the season, we stream before every game. So if we do this Monday thing, which it probably will be, we'll be streaming Mondays in the morning at around lunchtime. We'll also be streaming a second time on Mondays before Monday Night Football. Potentially, maybe we won't do as many Monday Night Football live streams if we're doing a Monday morning live stream, but I still kind of want to do them. So we'll probably stream for about a half an hour or 45 minutes before Monday Night Football. Of course, we will stream before Thursday Night Football as well, and 11:30 or whatever a.m. Eastern on Sunday mornings before the games kick off or whatever too. So, and we're also going to do. Last year we did a Patreon only live stream. We're definitely going to do a site members only live stream at some point, probably Saturday afternoons or maybe Sunday mornings early at like 9 o'clock or something. Before the other live stream, we will definitely be doing a lot more streaming during the season. I feel like honestly, we don't do enough streaming during the off season, and maybe you guys would agree with that as well. I don't even like Trey Lance, but this is kind of interesting at this point in time, given that I built out a productive struggle. Why are you guys making me take TJ Hawkinson and Trey Lance in drafts here? I don't like this. I don't want to be taking these players. Am I going to take Trey Lance? I don't think I'm going to be honest. I like the receivers here. I am going to take, I don't really love Jamison Williams either, to be honest. No, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to take Trey Lance because he has the highest ceiling of anybody here. I feel disgusting having taken TJ Hawkinson, Michael Pittman, and Trey Lance, the last three players, guys that I'm not overly high on, but getting decent value on them. So, I mean, we're going to see how the team kind of shapes out here. I knew you were hounding for Addison, how to take my sniper out, facts. Do you still have Tucker Kraft over Musgrave, or has it flipped since the draft? Are you buying any part of that? I mean, probably not. The second part of your question, I'm not buying into that part of the split tight end room from a redraft perspective. But in Dynasty, yeah, give me Kraft over Musgrave. I think he was the better prospect significantly, and I'm going to stand by my evaluation. I think it doesn't serve you guys for me to just like waffle on my opinion right after the draft just because Musgrave was the slightly higher pick. They were both day 2 picks. Tucker Kraft was way better in college than Musgrave, so I'm going to stick with Tucker Kraft over Musgrave. If we start hearing stuff like Musgrave's way ahead of him, Tucker Kraft gets injured, Tucker Kraft is maybe like, way behind him or something like that, because he was an FCS guy versus Musgrave, who played in like a Power 5 conference, then maybe I'll swap them. But honestly, I'm probably just going to stick with Tucker Kraft. And the nice thing is that you don't actually have to make this decision one for one. I can just not draft Musgrave anywhere, which I didn't in any rookie drafts, and just take a shit ton of Tucker Kraft at cost, because I don't have to decide, I'm at the 304. Which one am I taking? It's like at the 304, that's about where Musgrave went. I just don't take him. I take somebody else. And then in the 4th round, I take Tucker Kraft. So that was kind of my my thought process there. Send Pittman for Debo and Dynasty if you're contending. I would just rather have Debo in any situation because Debo is more valuable. I think he's a better receiver, and Pittman and him aren't that different in age too. So it's not like you're getting a significant discount. And I also think Pittman, as I've talked about, has a chance of, really declining in value if Anthony Richardson struggles his rookie year, which he probably will, because he was a raw quarterback coming out of Florida. It's possible that he's better than I think he's going to be, but I think the Colts are probably going to throw like 520 times this year. I think it's going to be a really, really low pass attempt team. So I would rather have Debo, especially with all indications being that Brock Purdy is probably going to be ready for week 1. I would definitely rather have Debo. I would probably normally take Hawk Daddy, but I let you snag him. Would he have made more sense for me than Kelsey in there, do you think? So you were picking right here. No, I would have taken Kelsey if I were you, given your team situation. You already had Allen, you had Waddle, you had JT and ETN. Yeah, I would have taken Kelsey too. All right. And I don't really like taking Kelsey in startups, but just given that team situation, I would have. Okay, what do we got here? 12 team super flex from Landon. Half PPR, 3-team trade. Okay, a little 3-way here. Team 1 sends Diggs and a 3rd, receives Christian Kirk and 2 1s. Jeez. Team 2 sends Chubb and a 1st and receives Diggs. Team 3 sends Kirk and a 1st and receives Chubb. Okay, so which part of this trade do I like the most? I think I like the first guy's move. He sent away Diggs and a 3rd and he received Christian Kirk and 2 1sts. I think that's probably the side that I lean towards. I think team 2 sending Chubb and a 1st receiving Diggs is a lot to give up for Diggs. As much as like I prefer Diggs to Chubb, I think they're both win now assets, and giving up a 1st on top of them is a little redundant. Team 3, Kirk and a first for receiving Chubb. I think he got kind of hosed there a little bit. And team 2 receives the third as well. Okay, I'm not really. I think team 1 probably wins that trade. I don't know which one you were, but that would be the team that I would want. I'm not on the clock yet. I thought I was. I can't justify taking Hawkinson anywhere in almost any format where he goes. Feels like a ripoff. I mean, he's a young tight end who had all this draft capital, had all this hype, and he just finishes like the tight end 2 in points per game. So I think we have to give him a little bit more respect than, oh, he's just boring old TJ Hawkinson, especially knowing that the Vikings are going to throw as much as they're going to throw this year. I do actually quite like TJ Hawkinson. The thing about why I'm not taking TJ Hawkinson on like underdog, for example, is because he goes like a round and a half ahead of George Kittle. And I think George Kittle is a better projection than him. And if at the very least, they're an equal projection. So why would I take TJ Hawkinson in round 5 of an underdog draft when I can take George Kittle at the middle of round 6? So that's basically why I'm not really grabbing a lot of him. But Hawkinson is still a pretty solid bet, I would say. So I'm back on the board here. Wide receiver, Bateman's interesting. Probably don't want to take any of these running backs. None of them really interest me. I already have Hawkinson at tight end. I already have Trey Lance as my third quarterback. I could, go full, double condom mode and take Brock Purdy here. I don't think I'm going to do that, though. I think that Elijah Moore is my highest rated wide receiver. I'm going to trust that none of you guys take him. I'm going to take Bateman first, but you probably will take him. So I might have just screwed myself there. Just got Kyler and Tua rounds 4 to 5 in my 10-team startup. That's really good value on those two guys. I'm not even super big on Tua, but I think round 5 is pretty crazy for him. 16-team super flex, Lamar Jackson, Swift, Alec Pierce, Huntley, and a third. And another third, or JSN Dotson, a first. That's going to be top 3 at 2025 first. Give me the. Okay, so Lamar is obviously worth a shit ton, but the rest of those pieces I'm not super, super interested in. I think I would rather have the 2025 first than Swift, Huntley, Pierce, and the 2/3. So that cancels out the rest of the deal for me. So it's basically JSN, Dotson, and a top 3 projected first, and maybe a late second, or I could just throw that in on the other side of the deal. I think I would take the JSN, Dotson, top 3 first, 2025 first, and late second side of that deal honestly pretty easily, especially in a 16-team super flex. Having a top 3 guaranteed first is going to be really helpful because that's going to get you, Caleb or Drake May or Marvin Harrison there. They picked and dipped, true. Where's the link? I don't honestly have any idea how I could get somebody to take over that team. Next year, I think I'll contend. Running backs are Gibbs, Akers, McBride, Strong. My wide receivers are Metcalf, Olave, Addison, Bateman. Okay, Nick, I've answered so many questions. I don't remember what your question was, but definitely. Rebuilding team with limited picks next year, first and third, trying to move Ridley, Mike Williams, Cortland Sutton. Should I be trying to move Devontae Smith too? No, I think Devontae Smith is fine if you're a rebuilding team even with limited picks. I think Ridley's not going to get you the value that you're going to want from him until we see him on the field. So I would hold him. And honestly, Mike Williams and Sutton too, because all 3 of these guys, I'm not huge on Sutton, but Ridley and Mike Williams, I think, are some of the best contending buys right now. I would say they're probably my 2 biggest contending buys at wide receiver. Because people are just like, I've seen Mike Williams get traded away for like mid-second round picks, and the guy legitimately might be a top 15 receiver in points per game this year. And same with Ridley. I think Ridley has a top 5 ceiling, and he's going for like early second rounders, late first rounders. Like I think both of those guys are going to have value once we actually see the boots, hit the leather in the games. Must start, sit. I remember. Yeah, I did. So what Mike is referring to is on Saturdays 2 seasons ago, I did a short video. It was like a 10-minute video on like flex plays. It was like 5 players that I'm starting that were like in the RB 25 to 35 range of my rankings, and then RBs that I'm sitting in that range of my rankings it was RBs and wide receivers, not like specifically running backs, but I could definitely do that again. I think that's an easy video for me. And I think that gets you guys a lot of, valuable like flex advice, which is usually what most of you guys are looking for during the season. Will Levis is interesting here too. I think I'm going to take Will Levis. I think it's kind of ridiculous how low Will Levis. Elijah Moore fell back to me though. Shit. I'm gonna go with Will Levis. He's a better value accumulation piece here. I'm building out a productive struggle with this team. When you're building out a productive struggle, like notice how I have no running backs on my team, and I could care less what positions I'm taking. because I already have 3 quarterbacks and I still took Will Levis anyway. Because when you're building out a productive struggle, you're not married to anybody. You're going to trade players. Like I trade, and when I build out productive struggles, I trade like crazy. So I'm just going to take the best players when I think players are falling at a value. And if Will Levis were to go out there and play 7 games at the end of his rookie season and look like a pretty solid, at least Kenny Pickett level quarterback, I think this guy's going way up in value, probably into the like 6th, 7th round of ADP. And if I'm a productive struggle trying to turn the corner next year or something, I could probably sell him for a running back, or maybe I just like hold on him and see how it plays out. It wasn't specifically Dynasty, Mike. I was just referring to any ideas in general. But in terms of the early week schedule for next year, what we're thinking of right now is the Monday morning show that I mentioned, because we're going to talk about waivers at the end of that show. And also Danny hates doing waivers and I hate doing waivers. We'll probably not have like a full status waiver show on Tuesdays like we did last year. What we'll probably do instead is I'll put out like a YouTube short and a TikTok about my top 5 waiver ads, and we'll do one for streamers as well. And then, of course, we'll talk in depth on the Monday show about the biggest waiver ads of the week as well, because neither of us really love talking about waivers, but we will prepare something for that. And then, Wednesdays obviously will still be like trade targets and stuff, but we really want to innovate how we do the wide receiver start and sit videos and running back start and sit videos. We're going to try and segment them a little bit more, make them a little bit more interesting, because before it kind of felt repetitive week after week, just talking about the same old stuff. And we're definitely not going to try and do that this year. I want to definitely make them more valuable to you guys. How do I take over Team 11? I honestly, I have no idea, dude. I think I would have to pause the draft maybe, but it's kind of too late at this point. This guy's just auto drafting 7 running backs, which is annoying me. But how long's the wait for a free Dynasty Decisions review? It will depend when you submitted your team. We have gotten to a number of free submissions recently, and we'll probably do more Dynasty Decisions videos throughout the rest of the summer, because we have done 90 episodes so far, and I want to get to 100 before the season starts. If we can, I would like to get to our 100th episode, but I'm not sure if we're necessarily going to get to that. Maybe it's in season when we get to that episode, but the wait shouldn't be too long. If Cats and anybody else that put a Dynasty Decision submission in, if you have already submitted a team and you have updates, please say when you submitted your first submission, and you'll probably skip the line better that way, because if you just submit again and don't specify that you already submitted once, we on our back end, we're just going to assume that it's a separate submission, because we can't see that you like already. So if you submitted in like February and we never got to your team and you never had a team broken down on the channel, submit it again and say, I submitted my team February 19th or whatever, and you never got to my team. So definitely just do that. And obviously be honest if we never got to your team. Don't just like say it or send some proof if you need to or whatever. Josh says, Joshua Oliver, the tight end for the Vikings, in a non-tight end premium, ironically asking a non-tight end premium question. Superflex Dynasty, what kind of return should I expect for Pitts? Okay, let me make my pick real quick and then I'll answer that. I was hoping Howell would fall back to me so I could get yet another wide receiver or yet another quarterback to fill out my core here. The tight end position is kind of gross. Running backs, Kendre Miller is kind of interesting. I think I'm going to take Gabe Davis here. Actually, no, I'm going to take, I'm going to take Sky Moore. I'm getting higher on Sky Moore. I like the peripherals from what I saw. Sounds like he's going to be a big time guy that I talk about throughout training camp in the preseason. He's going to be one of the guys I have my eye most on, because he's definitely a higher ceiling type of option. So what are you looking for Pitts? I was considering moving him. Honestly, Pitts, I wouldn't sell Pitts. If you guys have Pitts right now, you should probably hold him, because unless there's like a super Pitts fan in your league, or your league's really sharp and they kind of understand how Pitts' value can shake out over the rest of the position if he hits this year, I probably would not sell Pitts, because you're not going to get adequate value for him. Adequate value in a non-tight end premium is probably 2 first-round picks, 2 mid to late first-round picks, and I highly doubt you're going to get that in most league formats, so I would probably just hold. Love the streams, just not during the weekdays, usually working. Yeah. I mean, I like I don't know about you guys, but I really like doing these on Sundays or, Saturdays or whatever. The non-degens are arriving. Adam, I don't think you can. What's the best way to get into these mock drafts? The best way to get into them is to be in the Flock Discord, because I put the link in there before. And the second best way would be to be subscribed to the channel and have your bell on so that you're notified when we go live, because I dropped the link in the chat. And I believe Sir King Jared was in here in like 0.2 seconds. I don't know if he got that from the Discord or from the live stream, but he was not fucking around. He was in here immediately. No Lance for me. Sorry. Rice Cake Randy, interesting name, says, Superflex startup. I have Mahomes, Jonathan Taylor, and Devontae Smith in my startup. 4th pick. Would you go Kyle Pitts? I would go Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray would easily be my pick of that group. But all those guys are pretty decent options. Pitts and Murray would be the 2 at the top. But I would 100% go Murray there. Why don't you like Hawkinson? He's young and got a shit ton of targets with the Vikings. I'm super high on him. Knock me down a little. I do like Hawkinson for what it's worth. I think he should be like the Dynasty tight end 4 or 5, wherever he's ranked right now, 3 even. But the thing about Hawkinson is that I think his hype has kind of overshadowed the rest of his outlook to the point that in redraft, like I said, I can get Kittle, Goddard, guys around him for like 2 or 3 rounds of a discount almost versus where I have to take Hawkinson. He's like a 5th round pick, and I think it's just a little too early. And then in Dynasty, again, if I'm competing or if I'm grabbing Hawkinson, I know he's young, but I would rather grab him for a competitive team. And for me, I would just rather take like Goddard went at the 7.6 here, and Kittle went at the 7.4. I would just rather take those guys at their price points than Hawkinson. But I do think he has a good outlook. I'm not like shitting on Hawkinson. I think he's fine. There's no real quarterbacks that I want here. Running backs, I haven't taken a running back yet. Do I want to start now? I'm going to do an entire draft without taking a running back just to prove a point. I'm going to take Gabe Davis here. I was talking about him. I just fucking spammed wide receivers, quarterbacks, and a tight end. In this situation, in this league, this would be a 1-year punt. I'd be totally not focused on my point production. And honestly, having no running backs on my roster is going to help me tank my pick in addition to having young quarterbacks and young wide receivers. So hopefully with a team like this, my goal would be to acquire a high pick in next year's draft. Maybe mid-season, Michael Pittman's having a great season, I can sell him. Or maybe mid-season, Rashad Bateman's breaking out, I could sell him. Maybe Trey Lance is the starter for the 49ers for the first 5 games of the season, but I don't think it'll last, so I move off of him before Brock Purdy takes over or something like that. This is a team where I would have a lot of flexibility, and again, if we're in a real startup, I would have traded down a bunch of times with a team like this. What's your best advice for tight ends in Dynasty? Seems like the most confusing position. Do you like to bet on a rookie, trade for a top guy, or play it by committee? So the strategy that I seem to employ in Dynasty a lot at tight end is I like to just go cheap. I think it's a wasteland of a position. So if I don't get Pitts at a value or Hawkinson at a value or Kittle at a value or whatever, I just like to take David Njoku, Greg Dulcich, and Cole Kmet. Just give me 2 or 3 decent dart throws at the position, and I will roll with those guys. And if they miss and I'm in a competitive window, mid-season, I can sell one of them plus a 2nd-round pick for George Kittle or something like that. So honestly, for me, I think people get a little over-invested in tight end analysis for no reason, because realistically, it's not like the most important position in fantasy. I think it's the least important. And unless you're having Kyle Pitts or whatever other player you want, Brock Bowers in next year's class, I think you're better off just trading for a competitive one when you're about to win and investing in a bunch of young upside guys when you're not about to win. For me, that's resulted in a bunch of teams having a lot of shares of Greg Dulcich, a lot of shares of Pat Freiermuth, a lot of shares of, name X tight end going late in drafts. And this year's class now, Michael Mayer and Sam Laporta are going to be those next, generation of guys. To me, it's just way better to just invest in players like that at a cheap cost, because if they hit and they become at least Pat Freiermuth or better, then they're going to be startable tight ends that you didn't have to pay a lot for. And I don't love paying up at tight end, which is why for a number of reasons, but one of them is that I don't love drafting Travis Kelce in the 3rd, 4th round of a startup because he's old and he plays tight end. And I get it, he's a huge advantage, but when we're talking raw point per game production, Travis Kelce going at he goes way earlier than this normally, but you usually have to take him in the beginning of the 4th round where you can still get Cooper Kupp on the board. We're in fantasy football, you're trying to score more points than your opponent. Cooper Kupp has a 22, 23, 24 point per game ceiling. Travis Kelce's ceiling is way higher than all tight ends, but it's still only 18 points per game. So I'm probably not going after, high-end tight ends in startups. I like to just kind of go cheap or trade for a contending guy when I'm ready. What do we think of Jameson Williams? Startup price of wide receiver 30 is something I can get behind, but no one will move him for that in any of my leagues. Yeah, he's a difficult guy to move just given the suspension. We are done the draft now, by the way. If you guys want me to break down your team, feel free to let me know in the comments. I will answer the rest of these questions. We're going on about 55 minutes here. I would like to sign off around at the hour mark, so I will speed through these questions here, and then we will sign off of here. So, Jameson Williams, I've broken him down before. I think he is overvalued personally, just because his range of outcomes is quite wide, in my opinion. He could go anywhere from like completely useless in fantasy this time next year to a guy that's maybe a top 20 wide receiver. I wasn't as high on him as some people as a prospect, so I lean towards not going towards him in startups and things like that. I'll let somebody else buy into the ceiling. I will trade him for Jahan Dotson if I can do it. Maybe you can't do that. Maybe you can only get like I'm trying to think somebody in that range, Chris Godwin or something like that. I just personally, there's guys in Jameson Williams' range that I like better than him. Why draft Lance over? Because it's a mock draft. it's a mock draft, and also for what it's worth, yes, I have Purdy over Lance in Dynasty straight up. I have him like 100%. But given my team's construction, I'm a young team looking for a QB3, like you said, and I'm looking for a ceiling swing. Lance has a higher ceiling than Purdy, but yes, I probably would not have drafted him if it was a real draft because I don't love Trey Lance. And even at 7.5 costs, I'm not really interested in at that point in time, but he could accumulate in value. Even though I have a stance on the Purdy versus Lance situation, I'm not so blind that I can't see that I could be wrong about it. And if I am wrong about it, I will be really wrong about it because Trey Lance could absolutely be a 3rd round startup pick this time next year. I just personally don't think it's very likely that he hits that scenario. And I do prefer Purdy at that point in time. What are your favorite areas to take a trade back in during a dynasty startup? So that's a really good question. Honestly, I love trading back in the like 3rd round area. So like where Brian took Tyreek, if he wanted to like not go for like a win now build and trade back from 3-4 to like the 5th round and pick up a 2024 first, that's something I really like doing. Once you get to the 7th round to 9th round area, these players kind of blend together as well. So I don't mind trading down in that area. And I mean, I know Danny's the opposite of me in this department, but I don't mind trading up or trading down from like the 102 to the like 112. And picking up a 2024 first and a bunch of startup picks in that spot because I trust my ability to hit on picks. And yeah, Watson versus Hurts is a big difference, but Watson versus Hurts and a 2024 first and a 2nd round startup pick instead of a 4th round startup pick is something that I can get behind, in my opinion. So there's a number of different areas there. It honestly just depends on who's on the board and where I think I can get value pockets. Worth gambling / trading a probable mid to late first and my early second for a mid to early first. So this is an interesting question. I would say so. If you got like conviction that that's where those picks are going to be like comfortably, then I think that's a good move to make because as I broke down in that 2024 tier list video, I don't think there's going to be a huge difference between late firsts next year and early seconds. I think it's going to be a class that falls off around 108, 109, just like this year. And we're going to have probably better late first and early 2nd round prospects than we had this year. But I do think they're going to blend together and they're not necessarily going to be, one guy over the other. So I actually do think that's a decent move. Maybe see if you can get something on top of it. But otherwise, I think it's pretty solid. I've tried trading Mike Williams, but people say he's trash. He absolutely is not trash. Go trade for him if you guys are contenders. Stop taking all my rebuilding quarterbacks. My team looks so terrible. Not going to lie. Pick 2. Hurts, Stroud, Pitts, Judy, Walker, Pickens, Zay Flowers, A-Chain. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it. It's lacking some star power, but I don't hate it. I think you kind of just missed out on tier breaks, especially at quarterback. If I was you, I probably would have went with Olave there, knowing that you could have gotten Stroud on the way back, or you take Pitts there and then maybe you punt your quarterback to take a Pickett at 4.11, or maybe you take Love at 7 something or 6.11 or something like that. I probably wouldn't have taken Stroud at 2.11. I think it's a little too early for him. 12 team, 1 quarterback. I have Diggs, Tyreek, Ridley, Debo, Olave, Dotson, and JMO. Jesus. Would you trade JMO and other assets to get Jahmyr Gibbs? Sempi says, yeah, I would. Absolutely. You have a loaded wide receiver core. Jameson Williams. I'd be willing to give up Jameson Williams and your 1st rounder if you have it still. For Jahmyr Gibbs, that might not even be enough. I'd be willing to do like 1st and 2nd if they wanted that. Or you could use JMO plus any running back that you have to tier up to Jahmyr Gibbs. I think that's a good move. Is it worth it to trade Fields plus Burks for Herbert in a super flex 4-point per passing touchdown league? Fields plus Burks for Herbert. I think that's a decent trade. In a 4-point per passing touchdown, there's not a massive difference between Herbert and Fields. I think I would hold. I think I would rather have Fields and Burks. I'm not even huge on Burks, and I think I would rather have Fields and Burks there, just given that it's a 4-pointer. Building out a contender in a startup is stressful as hell. I don't know why anyone would ever do this. I mean, you're also doing it in this room, Chan. Sometimes you're in a room where like it never makes sense to do it because everybody's doing it and you never have to worry about that problem. But in this room, you're like, I might actually have to build a contender because everybody is wise to the don't build out productive or don't build out kind of contending situations here. I just submitted it recently. Yeah. So if you just submitted it recently, we'll probably be a little bit, I would say, until we get to your free submissions, because we have, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15 that aren't outdated ahead of you. Of course, if you want to skip the line, just reach out to me in the DMs and we can maybe set something up. If you sign up on like Underdog or something using our code, I can give you a free line skip for that if you want. Or you could just, become a site member, obviously. I hate to be that guy, but there's a number of teams ahead of you. Should have 2 Mother Flocker Dynasty decision submissions in the tank for you guys. Of course, we will get to those eventually. Are you doing another mock after this? Probably not. I'm getting hungry, and I've been at my girlfriend's family gathering most of the day, so I'm a little bit gassed right now. What's a decent offer to try and get for Hawkinson? If you're selling him, I would probably, in a non-tight end premium, I would want a first rounder for him. That's baseline level what I would want. And again, I'll plug our trade value charts on our site. Anybody that has first round value would also make sense. Like in the range of the draft that he went here, Hawkinson went at 5.5. I would want, if somebody offered me Calvin Ridley and I was a contender for him, I would take that. If somebody offered me Adams and I was a contender, I would take that kind of thing. And then, guys like Dotson and Jacobs and stuff, like Hawkinson's value in a half PPR. And then you said non-super flex. I would probably want even closer to a mid first potentially as well. Yeah, that'd be kind of my situation there on Hawkinson. I was gaming beforehand. I was on a run, another mock draft, so I can't do another one, boys. I don't have another one left in the tank here. I was first pick. Martin said, okay, break my team down. Mahomes, Pickett, Love, Purdy, Ritter. So a lot of quarterback investment there. It looks like you went with more of a productive struggle as well. I probably would have went a little heavier on wide receivers. But I think this is a relatively decent team. Kincaid would probably be the only pick I wouldn't. And not that I think that's horrible pick value on Kincaid. I just think I would have went with a wide receiver given that you were a little light at that position. So instead of Kincaid, I probably would have went like Flowers or Marquise or Godwin or whatever receiver you like in that area. Jordan Love at the 7-1 is also like fine, but I'm not like, I've seen Jordan Love consistently go in like the 7th, 8th round. So when he falls to 7, when he falls to the 7th round, it seems like a massive, massive value, but I don't think he's really a massive value until we get to like round 8 for Jordan Love. But I do like, had you gone Zay Flowers with the 7-1 and Chris Godwin with the 6-12, and then maybe instead of Desmond Ritter, you take a tight end, or maybe instead of Josh Downs, you take Sam Laporta, then I think I would have liked this team a little better. But I think overall, like probably like a B+ type of team. If Lance gets a starting job or traded, okay. No, I agree with you on the starting job, and I don't think he'd be a late first or early second round startup pick. I think you're overrating you're underrating how many great assets there are in Dynasty for Lance to vault up that much. I do think he would be in this range of the draft. Where CJ Stroud and like Pitts and stuff go, if he were to get the starting job and play well, because he also has to play well too. If he looks like shit and gets the starting job just because Purdy is injured, that's not really, really going to help his case. And also, if he gets traded away from San Francisco, I think it hurts his value quite a bit, because when you get traded away from the team that drafted you, I tend to think that the team that drafted you knew the most than any other team. And San Francisco is a good team. They're well coached. They pretty much could turn anybody into a good quarterback. So if they can't do it with Lance, to me, it bodes poorly for his outlook with his new team. And yeah, maybe he just needs a fresh start, and those cases happen in the NFL. But usually those cases happen in the NFL when it's an incompetent coaching staff coaching up a player. And I don't think the 49ers are incompetent, anything but, to be honest. Who would you rather have in Dynasty, full PPR, JSN or Drake London? I would rather have Drake London. To me, I've seen people make this argument on Twitter before. JSN versus London. To me, it's like the mystery box meme from Family Guy. Would I rather have a young 22-year-old wide receiver who just had a 30% target share as a rookie, or would I rather have a young 22-year-old wide receiver, 21-year-old wide receiver with all this target competition who I don't know if he's even good in the NFL yet? Like, yeah, I think JSN's a good prospect, but I thought Drake London was a better prospect, and I've already seen him be great in the NFL. So I think Drake London has to be the answer. They're like the same age, and London was the better prospect even coming out. So I prefer Drake London by a smidge there. It's not a huge difference, but I do prefer Drake London. Thoughts on James Conner and Keenan Allen as dynasty buys for contenders? I think both of those guys are really good buys. Keenan Allen makes me a little worried just because he had like a multi-week hamstring injury. He kind of feels like a trap from a redraft perspective. I would rather buy Mike Williams if you're going to buy a Chargers receiver, or buy Calvin Ridley or Mike Evans or something like that. Maybe not Mike Evans because I think Keenan Allen has a better redraft outlook than him. But James Conner, I think, is really cheap, and he could end up being a pretty solid buy for contenders. So been going for about an hour and 5 minutes. Again, if you guys did enjoy this stream, do me a favor, leave a like down below, subscribe. If you guys are new around here, you guys can see down below across the scroll bar here, head to flockfantasy.com/FSE if you want to have first priority to dynasty decisions, dynasty rookie rankings, articles, bonus content, databases. Like I said, tomorrow I will be doing the what makes a league winning quarterback. Then next week will be running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. And all that data will be available on the site as well. And of course, use code FSE for 30% off. And if you sign up annually right now, you can get a free Zoom consultation to talk about whatever. Dynasty, redraft, best ball. I'll do an underdog draft with you if you guys want to do on the Zoom consultation if you sign up annually. So definitely appreciate you guys tapping in. Who's winning this year in this mock? I'm going to say probably Chan has the best chance because he's got a pretty well-balanced team. But again, appreciate you guys for joining me. Enjoy your Sunday. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video. Peace out. I'll talk to you soon.